Hello and welcome one, welcome all. So happy to have you guys here with us. If this is your first time here, welcome to the Voices in Education. If you're a returning viewer, listener, subscriber, welcome back, welcome back. We're so happy to have you back here. Voices in Education is a safe space where we share and learn from each other. We do so in a respectful way to ensure that we're maintaining our safe space, our safe community, where you feel a sense of belonging, where you feel valued. All right. So, welcome one, welcome all. And on that note, Avi, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Another exciting one on the way, I would say. So, yes, thank you guys for being here with us in our safe space. We appreciate having you guys here. So, yes, we're talking about the Champions Cup this evening. And, we just want to share some views as it relates to the Champions Cup. So, I don't know if you want to start it off, my co host.
Okay, for sure. So, guys, for the DaCosta Cup and Manning Cup season, we have been pretty much there, and we have noticed, the Champions Cup in the context of both competitions and the impact it had. For example, as we know, the semi-finalists, all right, the schools that made it to the semis in the Champions Cup, they did not make their respective competitions, final. So we want to talk about that in this context. So do you believe that the Champions Cup, quote unquote, mash up the Costa Cup and Manning Cup competition? So we want to hear from you. So it's going to be a very interactive, conversation. And, what can we do moving forward? What message would you like or messages would you like to send to Issa in that context? So I am just going to get the Zoom information as well as the WhatsApp number. I'm going to pin that in the chat. So just give me a quick minute or less to get that done. And we ask you to give us to hit the like button, hit the subscription button when you get in, all right? We really appreciate the support. All right, so please don't be afraid to hit the like button and the share button. Tell a friend to tell another friend about the voices in education. So the WhatsApp number is pinned in the chat along with the Zoom information. So again, welcome if you're just tuning in. We're going to keep it real and respectful, and we're talking about the impact of the Champions Cup on the DaCosta Cup and Manning Cup competition. So, as you know, and let me just share the screen here quickly. Let me see if I can get to that. All right, there we go. And let's see here. All right, there we go. So, as you should be seeing on screen right now, these are the teams that were in the Champions Cup. All right, Heidel, Garvey Massio, Jamaica College, McGrath, Glenmuir, Kingston College, Ocherius, and St. Catherine. All right. So what happened is that the four semifinalists from the respective competitions, they entered into the Champions Cup. All right. So remember, the WhatsApp line is open. Give us a call. Would like to hear from you. And you can join us on Zoom as well. Would love to hear from you. So what we notice here, as you can see, Idle, they got the better of Garvey Masio, 3 goals to 2. Jamaica College got the better of McGrath. Glenmere got the better of Casey. Ocherius got the better of St. Catherine. All right. Then that shifted things to the semifinals of the Champions Cup. Idel and Jamaica College. So Jamaica College there getting the better of Idel, 1 goal to 0. Glenmere getting the better of Ocherius, 5 goals to 1. And as a result, Jamaica College and Glenmere, they went to the final and Glenmere won the Champions Cup, 3 goals to 1. But what we saw was the fact that although we have these schools, Hydel, Jamaica College, Glenmuir, Ocherius, doing so well, all right, in the Champions Cup, they did not make it to their respective, competitions final. All right, so they were already in the finals, and we have these teams. So, two country teams, two town teams, all right, in the semis of the Champions Cup. But unfortunately, none of these teams made it to their respective finals. All right, so Glenmuir, they failed to make it to the final because Garvey Masio stopped them. All right, so that is that. And Garvey and McGrath, they were in the final of the DaCosta Cup competition. Garvey Masio taking that cup. And over on the Manning Cup side of things, it was St. Catherine and Kingston College. Kingston College taking that over St. Catherine High. So, Avi, I'm just going to ask you in that context, because I really have some views that are really just my views, but in that context, do you believe the Champions Cup, I'm just going to ask you the straightforward question, mash up the Manning Cup and the Costa Cup competition?
All right, I see you're coming to me directly with that one. And, I would say it has taken away from those two competitions based on how the results have panned out this year. And, just to think about the fact that this Champions Cup has, come pretty much about three-quarter way through both competitions, and you start this Champions Cup at that level where all the semifinalists have been decided for both rural area and urban area teams, meaning Manning Cup and the DaCosta Cup. And what we have seen following up that it has taken away from the play in both competitions. And you were mentioning this early, really early out in the football season, and kudos to you for highlighting this. But what happened is that the quality fell after the Champions Cup, I would say, and I I am not sure it's a wise thing for ISA to have this Champions Cup um, fixed here in the competition, because as previously discussed, the esteem for the schools is to hold on to the Manning or the DaCosta Cup. And the Champions Cup, I would deem it as something secondary, as well as the Olivier Shield. So that's kind of how I view it, and it definitely took away from it. And in Jamaican terms, we would say it mashed it up. It mashed up the DaCosta Cup and the Manning Cup, in my view.
All
Coming
right,
back over to you.
sure. Thank you for sharing that. And as you mentioned, this is something that from its start, I'm like, no, no, no. we should not be doing that because the DaCosta Cup and the Manning Cup competitions should take priority over Champions Cup. All right. And so the Champions Cup now just, being inserted at that critical point of both competitions, we saw the impact of that because one, and I believe this is something that ISA failed, I guess, to recognize, is that the schools, remember now, we're talking about the semi-finalists from the respective competitions. So the schools that played their first game in the Champions Cup and did not pass that quarterfinal round, right? They had the opportunity to rest. They had the opportunity to go back, to the drawing board to fix their game plan in terms of moving forward. When you have the other schools now who have moved on to the semifinals, they were pretty much playing games, pretty close in terms of the day, perhaps a day or two or so in terms of rest time, but they were playing. And then by the end of this competition, right, they were back into games. So the final was on a Saturday between Jamaica College and Glenmuir. The Manning Cup semi-final competition resumed the following Tuesday, right? And the DaCosta Cup the following Wednesday. The next thing too, especially in the context of the country teams, you brought them to Kingston. So that is more traveling and this for the students. So just think about that in terms of the physical impact and perhaps the psychological impact that that may have ha had on the students in the context of, just how this particular competition, the Champions Cup, is inserted, in this schoolboy football, competition. And the next thing that I want to ask here, what is the purpose of the Champions Cup? Because the Champions Cup is pretty much running similarly to the Olivier Shield. Because when you look at the Champions Cup and how it is played, we're taking the top four, right, from both rural and, urban, and we're pretty much bringing them together to find who is the champion of the entire Jamaica. Because it's not just focused on, urban or rural. So, what is the purpose of this cup? If you want to appease the sponsors or whatever it is, or however this cup came into being, fine. But do not use it to interfere with the Costa Cup or the Manning Cup competitions because I am certain right now, if you should go to Glenmuir High School and ask the boys, which cup would you rather, the DaCosta Cup or the Champions Cup? They will, I am assuming, tell you that they would rather the DaCosta Cup because guess what? The DaCosta Cup will give them the opportunity to play for the Olivier Shield as well, right? But the Champions Cup does not afford them that opportunity. We saw the same thing happen too. I mean, it was a difference last season because at least Glenmuir and Clarendon College, they played for the Champions Cup. Glenmuir won the Champions Cup, right? And Clarendon College won the DaCosta Cup. But we can say that was pretty much fair because they had the same amount of games in terms of time and similarity, right? But when now you have this situation, and I mean, it can happen and it may perhaps may not happen, but we have to think outside of the box in this context where you have teams that are playing pretty much so close. They're not getting the chance to rest to get back into the competition. And I guess you're looking at time, you're looking at sponsorship, you're looking at perhaps, the live stream in terms of broadcast of the games that has also interfered with the quality of the schoolboy football and competition. I believe we should be trying to move forward in terms of better ways not trying to water down what we have. And so for me, this Champions Cup, they need to take it out of the middle of schoolboy football of DaCosta Cup and Manning Cup. Play it after. Give priority to the DaCosta Cup and Manning Cup competition. Play it after because it makes, I don't know what sense it makes to them to put it in this part of the competition, a very critical part of the competition. So I mean, I'm not sure what result they were expecting. And again, even coaches were able to highlight that the teams that made it to the semifinals of the Champions Cup, they failed to make it to their respective competitions final. You're not seeing a JC or a Glenmuir in a final. So it's clear that this impact is detrimental. Back over to you, Avi.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying there. And the position of that competition there in the middle, well, toward the end of the Dakar Cup and Manning Cup, has been problematic in a sense, and probably Glenmuir, they would say that this has affected them in more than one way. You mentioned last season when they won the Champions Cup, but didn't win the DaCosta Cup. So it's a double for them in that sense, where they have the Champions Cup title. However, the Costa Cup has eluded them, and as you said, if they were asked, they would be. I'm sure they would be happy to switch that around any day, switch the Champions Cup to the Costa Cup. But what are the things that we could suggest going forward? And this is my question that I want to throw out there. If you have the answer to this one, I would be happy to take that answer. But or do the principals and the coaches have a say in any of this, or it's a thing? Because it's obvious that some of the coaches aren't happy with the scheduling of stuff. I can remember one of the coaches saying, congratulations, Issa. And I sense a bit of sarcasm there. So, are the coaches being involved in some of the decision making as it relates to the things like scheduling Champions Cup and so on? Are they involved? And I'm going to extend that to the principals of the schools. Are they having any say in this any at all? So, those are the questions that I would love some answer to, in that regard, because I want to know if going forward, and I'm sure Coach Peart was the coach that identified that none of the teams that made it to, that entered the Champions Cup there, they were able to win their respective
Yeah, the
competition. So,
semifinalists. Yeah.
yes, yes. So, he highlighted that. So it is blatant. And, last year, like I said, Glenmuir winning Champions Cup, not winning the Costa Cup. I think it is enough grounds for, ISA to have serious discussions about, that competition being in the middle of the Costa Cup and, the Manning Cup. I think they need to give it some serious thought. And it's just like life. If you have the opportunity to get your first choice at an occupation or choice at food, or you're going to choose the one that you love the best. And I think the boys are forced, based on a scheduling of this competition, to compete for the Champions Cup, which is secondary before their primary goal of the Manning Cup and the Costa Cup. So I'm coming back over to you.
Thank you so much. And again, totally agree there for sure. I can't understand why you would have a secondary cup, taking priority. Play the competitions, go through the Costa Cup, let whatever go through your Manning Cup, let it be done. I mean, if you're looking at the fact that at that point the competition is at a high, on both sides and you're trying to capitalize on the support, then you're still not looking at the best interest of the players, the students. And that is what needs to happen. Their best interest should be at the forefront, at center at all times. And the fact too that the DaCosta Cup and the Manning Cup competition should take priority over the Champions Cup. I cannot understand why you would want to insert, the Champions Cup. And I feel that perhaps they might, hopefully, make some changes because when you think about, for example, the media coverage that Glenmere has gotten, and just how they have been performing, one would really and I suppose a lot of persons, were predicting that they would go all the way to the final, right? And that did not happen. And so when you think about that, they perhaps that might be a wake up call for them because they were expecting to see Glenmere. Again, I'm just using based off the media coverage because quite a few Glenmere games were televised. And so in that context, you can kind of get the sense that perhaps that may send a message to them to say, okay, we need to get in and fix this. This is not good. We need to fix this. Because, again, Issa, I hope you're listening to us. Please fix it. All right, we can still have the Champions Cup being very competitive, but play the DaCosta Cup first, play the Manning Cup first, and then you can deal with the champions um later on because we don't want the Champions Cup to be interfering with the DaCosta Cup and the Manning Cup. Or you bear in mind that some teams, and even if you decide that you're going to take a break for 1 week, some teams might be resting for 2 weeks. But my word, remember as I shared earlier, you had the Champions Cup on the Saturday, all right? And then you had the Manning Cup the Tuesday, all right? And then you had the DaCosta Cup semifinals the Wednesday. So, the teams that were played, so Glenmere JC, they didn't get much time to rest. And so, in that sense, everything just seemed unfair to both schools in that sense because they went all the way. While look who went to the final. Just look at the screen here. Let me just get my spotlight. All right, so look at who was in the final here. All right, so remember now so Glenmere and Jamaica College, right? They went to the final and they played. Tuesday, JC, following the Saturday, JC had to show up for their semifinal game, right? And so here it was, Ovi, remind me, I think it was JC and KC who played that semifinal. And we had St. Catherine and I believe Hydel playing. I'll double check that. I'll definitely double check that. I don't want
I
to
think
miss.
so.
Okay, I don't want to mislead you guys. All right. And then we had Glenmuir and Garvey Massio playing. And look where, and I want you to look at the teams. So Glenmuir, Garvey Massio played. They did not move forward in the competition. Again, JC, all right. They played with KC. Look where KC was. So KC again having that extra time to rest. All right. And so again, it's not as if those teams were like right here, where you can say, okay, Glenmere and Ochi, they're going to play in their semifinals, and JC and Idle. So it's a balance, at least for the most part, at least with one exception of a game, because they have Glenmere JC. But no, They had time to rest. And I don't believe Issa took that into consideration in terms of the scheduling. And so for me, in that sense, the Champions Cup is not a good is not in a good place right now, given the context of both competitions. You cannot use the Champions Cup to interfere with the DaCosta Cup and Manning Cup competitions. Again, those competitions must take priority over the Champions Cup. Allow the students to give off their best in their respective competitions, and then somewhere, somehow after, you can do your champions thing. I don't know, Ovi, if you're agreeing with that perspective. What's a way to move forward in this context?
Well, for sure, they need to get the Champions Cup from, out the middle there. I think that is going to be really important for them to do to get rid of the Champions Cup there. Um, I'm not sure exactly where would be the best place to fill that one in, but the thing is, after the Costa Cup and the Manning Cup, they're going to want to play the Champions Cup, not the Olivier Shield, I would say, and then would have to have the Champions Cup after. But I'm not too sure how they could do that. They'll have the All Ireland, the All the Costa Cup versus All D Cup in the new year. They probably could possibly consider, those games over in the new
Well,
year.
I'm not sure if they're even going to have that, because we have seen a lot of changes. And just to correct the Manning Cup semis, it's on screen there. Apparently, it was Jamaica College and St. Catherine who played Hydel and Kingston College. All right, so just to make that correction.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think I'm not sure how they're going to do this one, and probably things is a little bit congested because of the weather condition earlier out in the year. Early in the competition, we had lots of matches being postponed, and but things were really really tight for the teams, and the coaches, they didn't say it outright, but we know that they had issues as it relates to the scheduling of games. And just to get the guys, back into the frame of mind, get them recovered, for the next match seemed to be a challenge, especially when that was coupled with, traveling from, one area to the next. Because, we're talking about teams traveling into Kingston for all those semi-final games and for the Champions Cup. So, it was a lot on the kids. And, we're just hoping that good sense will prevail and ITA will consider, modifying what they have in terms of scheduling. Coming back over to you.
All right, so fantastic there. Thank you so much for sharing. And I hope, that, ISA, they will do something moving forward. And again, what we are suggesting or recommending is that ISA prioritizes the DaCosta Cup and the Manning Cup competitions over the Champions Cup. All right, so that is pretty much the message that we're sending. Do not allow the Champions Cup to interfere negatively with the DaCosta Cup and Manning Cup. And I believe, from my perspective, and I guess what you're sharing there, Ovi, that is what we saw this schoolboy football season, in that context, where again, just from what happened, for example, the teams that made it to the semis, or even the finals, all right, they did not make their respective, you know, competitions final. So that's just something to show there in that context. So we're just saying, that ISA just need to consider all their context, and in so doing, prioritize DaCosta Cup and Manning Cup. Again, if you should go and ask Glenmuir, who are the Champions Cup, and I guess they made history too in terms of winning back-to-back, Champions Cup, what they would prefer, I am certain that they would trade for the DaCosta Cup any day. All right, so guys, I'm not sure if anyone is going to call in. The WhatsApp number is pinned in the chat there, or you can just join us on Zoom. We just have a few more minutes before we wrap this one up. Would love to hear from you. All right, so give us a call or just follow the link and join us on Zoom. Would love to hear your voice. you know what is your view in the context of the Champions Cup and regarding the DaCosta Cup and Manning Cup competitions? We would love to hear from you, so come on in. Let's see who's going to join us on Zoom or give us a call. We would love to hear your voice. It's not just voice like my voice, it's voices. So let us hear your voice on this matter. Did the Champions Cup mash up the DaCosta Cup and Manning Cup competitions? That's the big question, and we would love to hear from you. So let us see if we get any comments in the chat. You can comment there too, or again, you can give us a call or join us on via the Zoom link there in the chat. So I guess that's pretty much it in the context of this one for sure, and so again, we just want Issa to do right by the students. And guys, that we are going to advocate for the students here because we don't want the competition to be going, in a direction that is not supportive of students. And we want to support their talents, their skills, and at the same time we want to be fair to them as well. And I don't believe with how the Champions Cup is played or was played, for example, this season, it's fair to the students, right? Especially the ones who are going all the way in the Champions Cup in the context of their respective competition. So we want to consider that in terms of moving forward. All right, so I'm not seeing any comments in the chat, not seeing anyone coming in on Zoom or getting any calls on my side. Ovi, I'm just going to swing by you for some final comments.
Oh, yes, thanks for coming. Just before I give the final comments, do you have any suggestion in terms of where this Champions Cup could fit in terms of, let's say that where it's a say, how could we give us some suggestions in terms of fixing this problem? We definitely say we're saying that no, we don't want it in the middle of the Manning and the Costa Cup competition, but where do you see it falling? Do you see it coming after the DaCosta Cup
Yes,
and Manning Cup
after the
competition?
DaCosta Cup and
So
Manning Cup, as I shared earlier,
before Ben
that's
Francis, before the Olivier Shield, or after the Olivier Shield?
it
That's
doesn't
my
even matter.
question to
It
you.
doesn't even matter because right now, as I shared earlier, while I was there just sharing, I am still asking too, what is the purpose of the Champions Cup? Because the Champions Cup, if you look at it, it's pretty much running a similar course to the Olivier Shield. Because what the Champions Cup is doing is taking the four top teams, right, from rural area, four top teams from urban area to find out who is supreme in terms of schoolboy football. So, right now, if we look at it from a critical perspective, the Champions Cup is somewhat more, I would say, potent than the Olivier Shield in terms of how it is measuring all island supremacy in the context of schoolboy football because it's going deeper by getting four from either side. When we go to the Olivier Shield, we're just talking about the winner of the DaCosta Cup and the winner of the Manning Cup. That sometimes does not reflect the strength depending on the teams that are there of either competition. So when we look though at how the Champions Cup is being played, and I want to be fair to them in terms of how that cup is designed, the Champions Cup, I would say, is more potent from if we critically analyze this thing in terms of determining, you know, who is reigning supreme, who is the top of schoolboy football, because you're picking the top four again from either side, and they're meeting and they're playing all the way to the final. All right. So I am wondering too if the Champions Cup is going to somewhat replace the Olivier, and the Olivier Shield really is it's traditional to schoolboy football. So perhaps that is the reason why they have it still in terms of tagging it along. But really, the Champions Cup, right? I believe again, it's a more, I would say a better evaluation then, if you want to put it that way, of who is supreme in terms of schoolboy football, because it's more rigorous, all right, than the Olivier Shield. And so again, no, I guess the question is, and as I shared, previously, my my experience, and I've seen the Olivier Shield change the competition. And again, this is what I am saying. ISA should not be watering down the competition. They should be, trying to move the competition forward in better ways to improve schoolboy football in general and to support the students. Because again, if everyone knows about Olivier Shield previously, two legs. You had to play one away and I guess home and away. The Olivier Shield could be shared in previous times. Now we see the difference. One time, one naka naka. And we're not doing extra time anymore in games. We're going straight to penalty kick. So you tell me now, is that, and again, I believe this is because of sponsorship, televised game, and to ensure that we're doing that. Tell me now, is it that we're moving forward in good ways, or we're just restricting, cutting down, watering down just to meet a particular standard in terms of sponsorship, business interest, whatever the case may be? How is that benefiting the students? Because at the end of the day, ISA should have the students' best interest front and center. So I want ISA to come and tell us how certain decisions that they have taken are pretty much supporting students, supporting football programs, schoolboy football in Jamaica, because I am not seeing certain things. I am not, again, I am still asking the question, what is the rationale behind some of these decisions? Again, we don't see nothing going into extra time. We don't have that anymore. From the 90 minutes plus finish, we're going straight to penalty kicks if we have a tie. So, Ovi, that's just my, I guess, perspective and way moving forward. And again, the Champions Cup, I feel that they wanted to take priority over Olivier Shield, but they should not use it to interfere with the Costa Cup and Manning Cup competition. And again, I believe the Champions Cup, it's a better evaluation tool in the context of All Island schoolball supremacy, simply because of how you get to the final, how you win the cup. It's deeper, it's more rigorous because we're taking the top four from the respective competition. So I would like to hear your follow up on that. So back over to you.
All right, interesting way how you broke that one down there. So Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but the truth is, it is the Manning Cup, the DaCosta Cup, the Champions Cup, and the Olivia Shield. That's what we have right now. And if they want to keep it that way, that's fine with me. And play the just not break the momentum in the Manning Cup and the DaCosta Cup and the order how things follow, I would probably say go Olivia Shield, finish that aspect off, and then have the Champions Cup, as the third trophy there. So for me, I would go get the Manning Cup and the Costa Cup out of the way, then play the Olivia Shield, and then after which I would play the Champions Cup. So, I don't
So
know what
yeah,
will
yeah, I get
be
what
the
you're
case
saying,
going
and it's not
forward.
like I'm saying that they should remove any of the cups. Again, I'm just reiterating that the Champions Cup should not interfere with the DaCosta Cup and Manning Cup competitions. Put
For
it
sure, for sure.
after wherever you may, but ensure that this the competitions, I guess. And based on what you shared too, it could be that they play the Olivia Shield right after, given that that is something that is traditional and
Tradition,
and
yeah.
and pretty much has been there in terms of schoolboy football, and to give it the respect that it deserves, perhaps you go right after into the Olivia Shield and then you play the Champions Cup. It's not going, and I think perhaps the thinking is that if they leave it for last, they won't have that kind of momentum because we would know who is the DaCosta Cup champion and the Manning Cup champion. So, that would be lost. But all they do, get the sponsors to boost up the money. So when the students and the schools they recognize how much money is there, they will put their all in it. That's how you support students and you bring in a competition like that. So yeah, man, turn up the thing for the students. So go back to your sponsorship and say we need X amount of money to keep the vibe and the energy going, you know? Because I feel perhaps that's the problem of it, where they're saying, once we know DaCosta Cup and Manning Cup, we're no longer interested in what's to come. Right? But because the culture
Yeah,
is all right, then drop out a D cup, so we don't here, man. We're not gonna. But they have to think about this in a logical way. You can't use Champions Cup to mash up the Costa Cup or Manning Cup. Back over to you.
for sure. We have to save the Manning Cup and the DaCosta Cup, and I hope they view it the same way. And as you opined earlier, could be a case where it's the sponsor saying that, can you do this for us so that we can get certain marketing, certain interests as well in terms of, viewership. But, it shouldn't be a case where it's taken away from the DaCosta Cup and Manning Cup. So whatever the decision is, and if there is going to be a decision anyway, because this is just us sharing our views as it relates to the competition. We don't know what ISA will do, or if the persons that be the stakeholders will talk to them and say, all right, I think we should change this. You know, it might just be the same thing that we're seeing next year, but for the integrity of the competition, the Manning Cup and the Costa Cup to continue to thrive, I think that's a big move that they need to make just to ensure that these competitions continue to maintain the standards and continue to improve in their own right.
All right,
So
fantastic. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah, that's pretty much my view on the whole situation, and let's see what ISA do going forward. We'll see what ISA does going forward, and let's see if there will be any interference or from the coaches or principals in that regard, or maybe we are the only persons who are disgruntled. Guys, if you have an issue with this, the Champions Cup falling in the middle there or closer to the end of the Manning Cup. and the Costa Cup, let us know in the chat so we can continue this conversation. Back over to you.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much, Ovi. We're going to put a lid on this one. All right, not seeing any new updates in the chat there. All right, so guys, thank you so much for joining us for this one. Really appreciate, you being here and for all the support. All right, thank you so much again. Blessings and love, and please remember to hit the like button, the share button, and the subscription button. And also tell a friend to tell another friend about the voices in education. Bye for now, and I'll see you in the next one.